Totally Football Show. Today, midweek matchday 21. They're just not that interim. We check in with headless Chelsea and Man United. We hear about Newcastle Leeds with Barnes on fire and the visitors put out. We salute Palhinha, Jadon Anthony and the other midweek stars. Talk transfers as City gets some menu and other clubs get some other menu. And we look ahead to the weekend and the FA Cup third round. Who's got Arsenal in the cup apart from Thomas Frank? All that and much more coming up in this Totally Football Show. Thursday, the 8th of January. Listener, so glad you could join us because we got Liam Tharme here waiting to talk to us.
Good morning, James.
Got Charlie Eccleshare in too.
Hello.
Charlie, by the whiskers of Curvy Tash, loving your new look.
Thanks very much.
Your luxurious new upper lip.
Yeah.
Damn. Do you recognise that reference, the whiskers of Curvy Tash, by the way?
No.
I wonder if Duncan does. Wonder Duncan Alexander, who is joining us literally from his sickbed at home. Duncan, how are you?
Well, I'm not literally in bed. I'm near a bed. So if I do lay down mid-episode, that's probably why. But yeah, I'm confined. Too much our league has put me into a fever. I'm sure many people are in the same position.
Liam was off at that Brentford Sunderland game on Wednesday, and we were all across all the delights, and there were many. There were many of the midweek round. John Salt's here with a question. Hello, John Salt. He says, have any of you ever been caught holding a mug from a rival podcast?
I guess I currently am.
Ooh, Liam. What's that? Is that a Tifo one?
Yeah.
Are they rivals, though? Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Are they?
I don't want to start that discussion at 10 a.m. on a Thursday
I'm
morning.
not sure. I'm not sure. Different fields, really, no?
This feels like when a new coach comes in and players, they're like to the player, which one do you prefer, your former coach or the current one? You can't, they're just different. They've got different styles, different philosophies.
Because you do quite a lot of Tifo, don't you?
Occasionally, yeah. Tactics pod as well.
Anyway, all right, well, there's much to talk about, so let's quickly check on those matchday 21 results. Tuesday, Forest's 2-1 win over West Ham at the London Stadium saw them open up a 7-point gap over the Hammers and the bottom three. Wednesday, then, there were mixed fortunes for Man United and Chelsea. Chelsea losing 2-1 at Fulham, where Cucurella showed his commitment to club continuity by picking up a red card. Things weren't much better for Man United, who drew 2-2 at the Premier League's second from bottom side, Burnley. Elsewhere, bottom of the table, Wolves drew 1-1 at Everton. That's now 3 games without defeat for the league's last place team. And Bournemouth ended their 11-game winless run and somehow coaxed a 5-goal match out of Tottenham Hotspur with a 3-2 win over Spurs at the Vitality. Further up the table, Brentford climbed to Czech's notes 5th with a 3-0 win against informed Sunderland, and Newcastle are 6th after that thrilling 4-3 with Leeds. Harvey Barnes with a brace. At the very top, or almost, Man City were held 1-1 by Brighton. That's City's 3rd straight draw. They stay level with Villa, who also drew 0-0 at Palace. That pair 5 points behind Arsenal now, who play Liverpool on Thursday night with the chance to go 8 points clear. We are going to be doing a special Totally Extra on Friday morning, reacting to Thursday night's events at the Emirates, and looking ahead as well to the quarterfinals of AFCON. Nice quarterfinal lineup. Egypt against Ivory Coast, Mali against Senegal, host Morocco against Cameroon, and Nigeria against Algeria. Today we're all about match day 21. Now, 8 games on Wednesday night. Duncan, you had the pick of whatever you fancied. You chose Burnley, Man United, and how wise of you. And Jadon Anthony scoring, making it 2-2 with what was Burnley's first shot on goal in the game, and yet they drew 2-2 with troubled Manchester United. Duncan, what did you make of this?
It was a strange game. As you say, Burnley had 1 shot on target, scored with it, drew 2-2. If you look at the raw data, United's XG was 2.55, Burnley's was minimal. United had 30 shots, 5 big chances. I think there was lots to take from the game. I think they started slowly, United, but really sort of picked up towards the end of the first half. Bruno Fernandes was playing in the number 10 role, which obviously a lot of United fans have wanted. I think that really unlocked Sesko as the game went on. Obviously, he scored both goals. First one from a lovely Bruno assist. The second one from a Dorgu cross with great sort of technique as he opened out his right leg and sort of steered it in past Dubravka. So I think going forwards, this was a kind of reborn we've got our Manchester United back DNA special. But despite Burnley's sort of lack of attacking numbers, they did threaten on the transition quite a lot. And it kind of felt a little bit like watching Eric Ten Hag's Manchester United, which kind of also reminded you a little bit why Amorim changed stuff so much when he came in. Now, we can probably all accept that what he did wasn't working too well, but he definitely identified that this team probably wasn't set up perfectly to play a sort of 4-2-3-1, which was what they were last night. So heading into, this interim period, I think, as we'll go on to talk about today, in terms of the other than the top three, the rest of the Premier League being so tight, I think there's a really, really good chance for United to come fourth or fifth this season and get back in the Champions League, which is obviously, very important for a club of that stature. So it's going to be quite interesting who they choose as interim boss, how they set up, because there are the bones of a good team here, but they still, I think last night showed that the flaws that have undone them in the last couple of years are still there. But I'm sure they can be finessed by someone over the next few months.
United dropping points in successive games against Wolves, Leeds and Burnley, which doesn't sound great for your Champions League qualifying prospects. However, as you say, they are still 1 point off the top five, so pretty good. Darren Fletcher says he's going to be in charge for Brighton in the Cup at the weekend. Charlie, what's the latest after that?
Well, yeah, I think that is the latest.
But the plan, and then he's just going to...
Who knows? I mean, then there's talk that it might be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Well, yes, there is. And
in.
Also Michael Carrick.
Yeah.
Any inside poop?
I don't think there's any further development on that beyond what Fletcher said last night. Right. I did think for a moment, Duncan, when you said I thought you were making a grandiose point about United's identity when you said for Manchester United to come forth. I thought you meant as in to kind of step forward into the light and we'll finally see the real Manchester United, which, I guess is also the hope of most United fans.
Come hither, record joint champions.
Exactly.
All right.
I mean, just on the managers, the fans at the game sang all of their names last night. So
all of them.
They don't. Yeah.
Which names did they sing?
They sang Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's name. They sang Fletcher's name. They sang Carrick's name. So they didn't sing Steve Bruce's name. So maybe we can rule him out. They also had, some of them at least, had what I might class as an ill-advised aesthetic decision. They had an anti to Jim Ratcliffe banner, but it was in the shape of a Jim will fix it badge saying Jim can't fix this, which is definitely a choice.
Yeah. Okay. Burnley took the lead in this game, which saw Darren Fletcher in charge as interim manager for the first time, reinstituting the back four and benefiting from the return of Bruno Fernandes. But, as I say, going behind early on after Aiden Heaven, who's been having a troubled time of it of late, deflected Bashir Humphrey's cross into his own net. But then Benjamin Sesko with the brace, doubling his goals tally for the entire season, put United in line for 3 points before Jane Anthony came up with that cracking equaliser. The point is nice, but it is 12 games without a win for Burnley and 3 points from the last 36 available. They are 8 points from safety. Well, Darren Fletcher taking charge at the weekend, then we hear for the game against Brighton. Brighton, Wednesday night, were at City. What turned out to be a 1-1 draw. Charlie, you watched this.
I did.
What happened?
A lot of missed chances for both teams. Brighton in the first half had 3 pretty good chances before City scored.
Right.
And it really felt like a sort of crushing inevitability to the fact that they would rue those missed chances and City would go on and win 2 or 3-0, especially when Erling Haaland scored from the penalty spot just before half-time.
His first goal in 4.
Yeah, exactly. And then Bernardo Silva had a really good chance just after half-time. Absolutely gifted the ball, but he doesn't score it. And then, and obviously, to be honest though, at this point, like Brighton started the second half really sluggishly. It looked like they sort of ran out of puff a little bit, having been really in the game and really exposed City. I mean, obviously they've got these defensive injuries, and it was one of those games which can happen with Pep teams, where if you can beat the first press, you've then got this huge, vast, sways in front of you of open space. And so they were doing that. But then City tightened up, got the lead. But then Matoma scored a brilliant equaliser. And then Brighton had an incredible chance to go ahead. So Matoma runs through again and he opts to pass to Diego Gomez this time. But Diego Gomez sort of overruns the ball and it kind of hits his heel, goes backwards, but then it deflects. It hits Donnarumma and just doesn't quite go in. So it could have done. But then City missed some absolute sitters. Haaland with the biggest one. You know, I'm just still shocked that he misses it. But Verbruggen anticipates exactly where he's going to put it. He's plumb in front of goal, Haaland, and he hits it to Verbruggen's right, and he's already down there, and he actually doesn't even parry it. He holds it. And yeah, City huffed and puffed, but for a third straight game in which they really had the chances to win, they did not.
They did not. And the fourth straight game against Brighton for Pep Guardiola that they failed to win. They've actually dropped 5 points from winning positions against the Seagulls this season. It's remarkable. A week ago, or maybe 8-9 days, we were kind of bracing ourselves for City to stage one of their post-Christmas runs and really lock down maybe even on first place in the league. But instead, as you mentioned, 3 straight draws. How much of that is the fact that Pep, after finally settling on a team, has now seen all kind of the back line ravaged by injury?
Yeah, I just don't think they've got the replacement for Ruben Diaz. He's a phenomenal box defender. We heard Guardiola a few years ago talking kind of about the need for those proper defenders out wide, but they need them at the back sometimes as well. I think especially at a time where Stones isn't fit, they just don't really have the depth there. They're down to academy players. And look, Guardiola found a different system this season, that kind of Christmas tree Ancelotti type shape where he's playing Shirky and Foden behind Haaland, and it's working really well. They've got real kind of attacking fullbacks in O'Reilly and Núñez, but without that, you kind of need those specific profiles to kind of execute that system and to make it work so well. I just don't think they've really got the depth that kind of other teams have, Arsenal especially. And the whole conversation really with Arsenal last season was they ended up out of the title race because they just drew too many games, and that is currently what City are kind of at risk of doing.
Interesting. It is quite interesting because City have basically been a bit varianced in these 3 games. They're all games they should have won, didn't. But if that was Arsenal who had done it, I think we'd be talking about a sort of big moral, psychological failing. Do you know what I mean? Like we would, if they'd drawn 3 games and missed big chance, it'd be like, well, that's pressure, that's psychology. Sometimes this just can happen. Like I don't think it didn't feel to me like City were, particularly feeling the pressure. Like there was some suggestion because they played second in their previous 2 games, which they drew, and whether that added it, I don't think so. I think they've just had 3 games where the marginals have slightly gone against them.
This is what title races always used to be like. We've been slightly broken by those years when City were getting 100 and Liverpool were getting in the 90s. That's unusual. This is how titles and seasons transpire. I think City aren't out of it, nor Villa. I mean, Arsenal, could drop points against Liverpool tonight. They could drop points in other games. But I think for neutrals or people just interested in a good title race, this is good. It's intrigue. I think if you think back to that season where City and Liverpool won, won their last sort of 12 games, there was no tension because it was just like, they're just both going to win. Whereas I think this is fun.
You just don't know what's going to happen, do you? City racing to bring in reinforcements. Even as we speak, we understand Antoine Semenyo is currently having his medical with Man City. Charlie, as you were pointing out, he played barely 11 hours ago.
Yeah. I find it kind of incredible that he was willing to play these sort of extra 2 games. Like, what if he does his ACL and that's his dream career move ruined?
That's a very good point.
Like, I can see why the clubs reached this agreement, but for him, it does seem a bit odd. But, spoiler alert, it worked out pretty well for him.
Yeah, well, what a goal he scored in Bournemouth's 3-2 win over Spurs. Perhaps we'll get on to that later on, but back to Duncan.
Just on the last thing on the City game, it was fun to see Donnarumma pick up his 5th yellow card of the season.
Finally.
He's now... there's only 10 players in the whole division who've got more yellows than him this season. So, I mean, I think the record for a goalkeeper is Jens Lehmann, unsurprisingly. He got 8 in 06-07. So, Donnarumma is well on for smashing that record, I think. And, what a thing to do in your first season in the Premier League.
All right, Brentford 3, Sunderland nothing. Liam, you were there to see Brentford go 5th in the table with a 3-0 win over Sunderland. And you raced home to pen a piece entitled "Why Brentford Are Currently the Premier League's Most Tactically Influential Team." What's their big influence?
Well, I think you look at the way the other teams are playing in the league, right? And we often talk about kind of inspiration as like Guardiola or Klopp or Bielsa, but generally speaking, other teams don't actually play like the way those coaches have their teams play. They still tend to be outliers. They might encourage teams to play more in that style, but the things that Brentford are good at, sitting deep in a compact block, they're in a 4-4-2 a lot without the ball, defending for long spells, counter-attacking from that shape. When they do choose to press, they tend to go man for man. They like long balls a lot from the goalkeeper especially. They've got a set piece threat that they're known for, even though they've actually only scored twice from corners this season. They've got long throws, all these kind of elements that I think so many teams now are going to the G-Tech. Sunderland are the 13th team since the start of last season to go there and lose. There's quite a few teams, Bournemouth, I think Newcastle, Manchester United have all lost there twice in that time. Teams go to Brentford now, generally speaking, and lose. It's one of the hardest grounds to go to, especially outside kind of the conventional Big Six. And I think the league is just moving more in the direction of Brentford. Whether that's a deliberate thing or they've just found a really effective style, a way they can compete. You look at the fact that there's big clubs now signing, Newcastle signing Visser and Bournemouth going to Man United. Arsenal brought a couple of players in Norgard and Raya. Obviously, Thomas Frank's gone to Tottenham, so kind of it's if you can't beat them, join them type thing, and kind of acquiring those. Even down to the recruitment, I guess, what was once their thing of being so unique and saying, oh, we're data driven in our recruitment. I think everyone kind of does that now, which is a big compliment in a way. And Sunderland is the kind of surprise package in the Premier League this year to go there. And okay, it's a different story if that penalty from Lefebvre goes in, but even at 2-0 up, 3-0 up, Brentford were absolutely relentless. They had 3-4 players continuously breaking counter attacks. You could probably forgive that as saying, oh, Igor Thiago is just going for his hat-trick, but you see like Kevin Shard is still making big kind of 60-70 yard runs when the game is completely settled. So yeah, they've found a really, really good balance.
Right, lots to pick up on there. Igor Thiago, who set a new record for goals scored by a Brazilian in a Premier League campaign. He's now on 16. How many have Mbeumo and Visser got? Visser's got 1 at Newcastle, and Mbeumo's got 7 together, which is about a third of what the one man they brought in to replace.
Yeah. I mean, Keith Andrews was already being asked in the post-match press conference about if big clubs are coming in for him, and someone was asking him about about Brazil in the World Cup next year, and he's just like, well, I don't pick the Brazil squad, but he's like, I wouldn't change him for anyone. And it was very kind of classic managerial speak, but you made a really fair point about saying it's not just the goals, it's kind of the all-round game. He's a real complete striker, the way he kind of runs the channels, the way he presses. I mean, he got booked at the end of the first half. There was a channel ball that got overhit and he chased it and basically just hauled the defender over in a kind of active game management and got booked for it. But I think he's a really, really good, well-rounded striker, and that kind of profile, clearly, when you look at Haaland and others kind of more physical players, is really coming back into fashion.
Excellent. Brentford, fingers crossed for them that they can hang on to him. Enzo Lefebvre and that penalty. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so the score was 1-0 at the time, and Sunderland get the penalty, and Enzo Lefebvre steps up, one of Sunderland's brightest stars of this season.
And went for a Panenka. And Kelleher just stood there and caught the ball. I mean, his penalty record's really good, Kelleher, but I think when you watch him as a goalkeeper, he tends to react quite late generally. That's just kind of his style, and people made a fair point that he's one of the few keepers in the league you probably shouldn't try that against, because he's just not going to commit early. And look, if it comes off, and Regis Lebris said this afterwards, if it comes off, it looks really good, and the narrative is very different. Whether Lefebvre was certain that Kelleher was going to dive, I don't know. But even from that, it was quite telling that Kelleher caught the ball and immediately kind of ran to the edge of his box, sent the ball long. 3 Brentford players ran up the pitch. Thiago, bought a foul, I think. That was just kind of their whole game plan all night, was saying, well, we're going to get him behind you and attack that way.
Would that have been the first ever Premier League goal that started with a counter-attack from a Panenka? I think it probably would. So, I mean, it led to the usual wailing. When a Panenka doesn't go in, it's like Tim Sherwood wasn't happy on Sky. It's against the spirit of football, even though it's just a shot on target that's not gone in. It's fine.
Brentford 5th in the table, Liam. They are 1 point behind Liverpool in 4th, and yes, a point above Newcastle and Man United. Where's their real level?
It's a great question. I mean, a couple of seasons ago, or last year, that they've had kind of European pushes under Frank before and kind of tailed off a little bit. I mean, the interesting point is that they're on track, I think, currently to about equal their record point tally of 59 under Frank, which I think maybe got them 8th or 9th. And obviously, it's all just relative. If the teams above you aren't getting as many points, that might get you 6th or 7th in a season. So it's definitely top half. And they're a really well-established top half team now, apart from kind of, I think, one season under Frank where they really tailed off an awful lot and came well down the league. They've provided a really, really good blueprint for how to survive, how to compete. I think that's something to an extent which, Sunderland, Burnley kind of less so, but Leeds definitely have all kind of followed.
High-flying bees. Now, their erstwhile manager, Thomas Frank, meanwhile, not so high-flying. His Spurs side on Wednesday was down at the Vitality, taking on Bournemouth. Daniel Storey on Sunday saying that Bournemouth deserve a lot of credit because they're the goaliest team, the most entertaining side in terms of goals for and against in the Premier League this season. If they could get a game out of Spurs, how much credit they deserve. Lo and behold, Charlie.
Very entertaining game. Spurs, from what is a very low bar, were more creative. Xavi Simons coming back made a big difference. He was pretty good. They had chances. It was very eventful. An incredible equaliser from João Palhinha with his second overhead kick of the season. He scored one in the Carabao earlier. That made it 2-2 pretty late on. And you did sort of sense a winner was coming for either team. At that point, felt like Spurs might go on and win it as well. But then, Semenyo, it had to be him scoring in stoppage time to make it 3-2.
Absolutely, yeah. Bournemouth are going to be facing a future without Semenyo and, for the foreseeable future, Justin Kluivert, as he's going to have knee surgery, so problems for him. But frustration for Spurs fans for all of the extra entertainment in this game of the way that they lost control of a match that they took the early lead in. It set up nicely for them against a Bournemouth side who hadn't won in 12 matches, 11 winless games.
Yeah, I would say Thomas Frank's stock fell even further, but it didn't have that far to fall, to be honest. I mean, you're really struggling now to find any Spurs fans who want him to stay on or think that this is going to end well. It feels just a matter of time. Although, he's had the support, of the people running the club. I don't know at what point that changes because, this was another really poor result, and the fans have completely turned on him, basically.
All right. Seen other clubs deciding to make that change of late. One of them was Chelsea. I must admit, on Wednesday night, it was their game that I decided to tune into. Combination of the Chelsea change and Fulham's form and the fact that Harry Wilson was playing in it. So me selecting Fulham 2, Chelsea 1. We saw a Chelsea red card. They're 7th of the season, which I believe, Liam, is more than double the team with the next most red cards.
They've got 3 next most.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Crikey. Not only did Mark Cucurella get a get red for hauling down Harry Wilson on a kind of classic Fulham. It was a hoof upfield from Bernd Leno, I think, wasn't it, that Wilson gets onto?
They try this quite a bit. Harry Wilson's speed is, Cucurella is quite quick, but Harry Wilson's really fast and kind of gets up to speed quickly. And I thought the funny part was Cucurella actually kind of gets contact on him quite well as the ball's dropping, and then is so focused on kind of holding on to him that he doesn't really make the effort to clear the ball, which is why Wilson gets in front of him and then he pulls him down. So I thought actually the first bit he did right, and if he then kind of lets go and clears the ball, he'd have been fine, but he clearly panicked a bit.
Remarkable. He picks up the red, and I don't think there was too much debate about that for denial of a goal-scoring opportunity. 3 other Chelsea players then get booked for dissent in that one incident.
Well, it's quite funny. I was at the Villa game that obviously Chelsea lost at the very end of December, and people were asking Maresca there, and I can't remember how many yellow cards Chelsea had, but again, it was a game where they had quite a few, and their discipline record is quite poor. And they're asking Maresca about that, and he was very much just like, we have to look at every kind of moment individually and kind of analyse them all on their own merits. But some of it is petulant. Yeah, it would. A lot of them are very petulant, and look, it's perhaps a bit more you can forgive it a bit more when it's such a young team of players that are learning kind of, if you want to call it the dark arts or just ways to play and how to react and stuff. But I think, Spurs are quite high up on the list as well, and I think it's just such a waste. It's some of these are so avoidable, especially the argumentative ones. I think it was Grealish the other day as well,
right?
With the clapping, you think it's so silly more than anything.
From a Chelsea perspective, the kind of knee-jerk reaction is this is a side that struggles for discipline, and as such, it's going to be one of the major issues for Liam Rosenior to try and get a handle on. Before we touch on him, he was there in the stands yesterday, enjoying one of the owners being serenaded next to him by the Chelsea supporters. But Fulham, against 10 men, thought they'd taken the lead when Harry Wilson scored, but then that was disallowed for a narrow offside. It was then Raul Jimenez who got the breakthrough 10 minutes into the second half and unleashed that remarkable celebration. Did you see this? It's a FIFA tribute.
Yeah.
But the commitment to it, he's 4 or 5 feet up in the air, horizontal, and with almost no attempt to break his fall. I worried when he didn't immediately get back up again.
Yeah, and then for quite a few of his teammates to follow and kind of jump on top. I think if sports scientist or the physio is probably looking at that with head in hand, thinking, "Oh my God, what's going on?" There's a great stat with Raul Jimenez as well. Duncan might be able to verify this. I think it's 14 out of 17 of his goals at Fulham have all been opening goals in a game, which is just...
What does that mean, Liam?
Well, I mean, it's clearly just a player that
clutch.
Plays 70 minutes, right, and will often come off. I mean, they've got
Right.
when Rodrigo Muniz is fit, he can play as well. But I think he's just quite a good all-round striker. You look at kind of the variety of goals he scores some nice headers, can score off both feet. Fulham probably keep games quite tight as well and try to not concede too much. So they're not the kind of team that's going to blow teams away too much.
All right, well, he gave Fulham the lead on Wednesday. Chelsea, though, just as they had against Arsenal, fought back with 10 men, and they do get quite a lot of practice, obviously, at doing that. Liam Delap scoring his first Premier League goal, but then with 10 minutes to go, up pops Harry Wilson with his 10th goal of the season for club and country. Is there a reason? Is there something that Marco Silva has done to unleash Harry Wilson in this kind of form?
Well, he's just playing more regularly. You look at the minutes he's had in recent years, not been that high. He's always been a really kind of clean ball striker, I think. Obviously, good technical level. He's a Liverpool academy player, kind of going a few years back. And I think players like him, especially wide players, and it's almost cliche to say, but you kind of consistency of end products, the big thing, right? They tend to be criticised for. I think having a clear run of games really helps. Having probably a settled team around him. There's kind of better technical players. I know Iwobi's not there, but you look like Smith Rowe. I think they've invested quite a bit kind of in the forward line in recent years. So I think that helps too.
He started wearing a hairband this season, which sounds frivolous, but like sometimes, a player knows when they're kind of elevated to a higher level and you can get away with that decision. And I think he's been fully justified.
There was one Argentina manager who, based on studies, the amount of time players would lose keeping their hair out of their eyes, insisted that all their players, including Gabriel Batistuta, got their hair cut short. So, yeah, you know what? It may not be as spurious as you think. Harry himself, after the game, saying that it's because he wears his laces different lengths, which you just don't know, do you? If he thinks it is, that's what it is, to be fair. Now, Liam Rosenior there in the stands, as mentioned, next to director, I called him co-owner, but director Bedad Egbali, with the away fans singing, "F*** off, Egbali, you're not wanted here." They all the way through the game, they were singing, "We don't care about Clear Lake, they don't care about us, all we care about is Chelsea FC." It does seem like a corner, if you'll excuse the expression, has been turned in how Chelsea feel about their owners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a good direction.
No. Yes, I think there's a lot of frustration there.
Yeah. Blue coat out, flag held up in the away end before kickoff. For Rosenior, we talked about the ill discipline, the team's remarkable naivety when faced with any kind of direct attack, as we saw from that Harry Wilson, from the Cucurella red card. What else has he got to get a handle on?
One thing he doesn't have to get a handle on is their kind of attacking corners. Their attacking set pieces have been really good. They're one of the best teams in the league throughout the season, and was quite enjoying the succession of, I think it was from Enzo Fernandez, the corners in the first half, where just basically whipping them on top of Bernard Leno. They almost kind of score twice, almost directly in, similar to the goal they got against Aston Villa recently. So they've been a real threat from that. But yeah, there's definitely work to do kind of in open play.
Typically lengthy contract. He's going to have time to take care of those issues.
Is he?
According to the number on his contract, which is 2032. Yeah. You don't sound convinced, Liam. I don't know if anybody else has got gut feelings about this. There was something about seeing him in the stands, kind of politely looking on while that. I'm not sure what your gut feeling is about that whole move.
I'd love him to have the time. I mean, I've watched a bit of kind of his Strasbourg team and really enjoyed them. I think his whole journey kind of as a career, and look, as someone with kind of Brighton links, I've got a bias towards him, and also someone called Liam, I've got a bias towards him.
Yeah.
No coach these days seems to get that much time kind of a big club. You think how far through like Arteta is now at Arsenal, and how early on there were calls kind of for him to go, and things like that. Is it something like 8 coaches Chelsea are on to now in about 6 seasons? I think regardless of who the ownership are, there doesn't seem to be much tolerance. And I kind of understand it when there's so many trophies to compete for and so much money in the game that they want to see those immediate returns. But I always find it baffling that contracts are kind of this long, or it isn't shorter to start with, and then you can kind of renew it or put in some kind of clause if performance is good to at least protect your asset.
Yeah, Maresca had the same duration of contract.
I mean, there's a crazy stat of how many years that contracts their cumulative managers have been put on and how long they've actually lasted, and it's not a good ratio.
The classic one being Alan Pardew.
He wasn't blue coat. To be fair,
he wasn't blue coat, but you can date everything, from the whatever era of the dinosaurs through to now based on where you are in Alan Pardew's contract. But I mean, obviously, a contrast with Fulham, where Marco Silva's contract has but months to run.
Wow.
And they're doing so well. I mean, just like off for summer, where I think there was some frustration, they weren't able to make the signings they wanted to. They continue to be, such a kind of well coached team, and they're ninth. They're joint on points with Chelsea.
They're level. They're level on points with Chelsea, and with Brentford in fifth, as we've discussed. West London football.
It's on the up.
Something in the water.
I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say best wishes to Kevin Keegan, 2-time Ballon d'Or winner, beloved former Newcastle player and manager, former England manager, all-round smashing bloke. I'm sure we all heard the news about him, so I hope he is as well as possible, and wishing him all the very best for the challenges ahead, and a lot of tribute paid to King Kev Wednesday night as Newcastle were at home to Leeds, and fitting really that the team should come up with a 4-3 win indeed in the great man's honour. In many ways, I know we were all kind of focused on other matches, but this does seem to have been the match of the midweek. 7 goals, Leeds were ahead 3 times, Newcastle ending up snatching victory with 2 goals in stoppage time, including from Harvey Barnes, the latest winning goal ever scored in a Premier League match.
Well, since 2006-07, when Opta's detailed records begin, but
was no one keeping track of the time before 2006-07?
Not to the minute and second, no.
Wow.
So that's when the stat date's from. But I'm going to say that no goal before then was later. And I'm going to say that no goal in the history of top flight football has ever been later. As a winner. So, yeah, we've got no evidence for it. But vibes-wise, that is it.
I'm astonished by this information that people just didn't keep detailed timekeeping records before 2006-07. I'm positing in my head, even now, a kind of Life on Mars variant where Duncan hits his head, wakes up in kind of 1995, and is just dumbfounded by the total absence of everything that he now regards as essential to modern life.
Wouldn't mind it. Like Les Ferdinand in his pomp. What a time.
Think of the soundtrack.
Do you know a great stat about that? You said 1995. You'll love this. The year of Blur and Oasis and Pulp and Britpop. Great time for British music. Do you know what the number 1 selling record was that year?
95. Great, Liam, you
Don't look at me.
You weren't even born.
I was not born.
Not born. Now, see, I was away in 95, so I'm not sure what would have been the biggest record in England. But Duncan, any thoughts?
It's going to be something twee.
Can you hum it? Duncan?
I'm not getting it. What is it?
That was Robson and Jerome's Unchained Melody.
That was not Robson and Jerome's Unchained Melody. Unchained Melody is like, oh, but
I've done the wrong song.
You've done the wrong song.
Cut that.
Anyway, Newcastle 4, Leeds 3.
But that was the song.
What were you humming?
Evergreen.
Oh, right.
Which I've confused. Anyway, can I do I'll do the reveal anyway.
No, that's staying in. That's all.
I never knew that Bobby Robson and Cameron Jerome released a single, so fair play.
Nice. Anyway, heartbreak for Leeds, who led 3 times and yet still went home empty-handed. I guess still loads of positives for them to take, even while their recent unbeaten streak comes to an end. But Newcastle now with 3 straight victories. Still plenty of positives for them to take from their battling performance and they are 8 points clear now of the bottom three. Funnily enough, they are the first team to take the lead 3 times, and it is ironic, given their name, but the first team to take the lead 3 times in a Premier League match and lose since Leeds at Spurs just over 3 years ago.
Thank God for Opta and their more detailed records now, yeah.
Yeah. What about Newcastle, though? That's 3 straight wins for them. Have they turned that corner?
We still don't know, really, do we? It's the problem. They similar to a few years ago when obviously they had Champions League football and really struggled. I think their intensity kind of fell off a cliff, the big part of their game, which kind of got them there. We're seeing glimpses this season. I think they've really struggled for consistency. And I mean, this home form, good home form, has always been a staple of them, going back years throughout the time that Eddie Howe's been there. It's been away games where they've really been struggling. I think there's players that have been a little bit hit or miss or form, been a bit inconsistent. I mean, Harvey Barnes having a really, really good season. You don't quite realise till you look just how many goals he's scored now. He's got 19 Premier League goals for Newcastle and 74 appearances. Most of his time is coming off the bench now. Often Gordon starting, or they've got such kind of quality and depth out wide. You think about Jacob Murphy, Anthony Elanga as well. So I'm not convinced they've still quite found the right balance in attack, but they feel very capable of kind of putting a streak together. And when they're on form, I think they're really hard to stop. Up
to 6th place, but it is so congested. Still so congested there outside the what's left of the title race. But a break, of course, this weekend for the FA Cup, and Newcastle taking on Bournemouth, Eddie Howe's old side, although without presumably the services of Fabian Schär, who went off with what looked like a nasty something to his ankle/lower leg.
I mean, it is just on that congested point. It's even more so now, from 4th to 15th. There's 8 points. So it really, so you're seeing a club like Newcastle have a few good results and really leap up. Likewise, they and Crystal Palace, it feels a sort of swap places from a few games. And I haven't seen enough to suggest that undulation won't continue.
I see. It was 1-1 between Everton and Wolves on Wednesday. That's 3 games unbeaten now for Wolves. They're up to 7 actual points. Duncan, you always said that Derby's record would remain sacrosanct.
Never in danger. Never in danger.
Only 4 points away from equaling it.
Oh, yeah, they're going to cruise past it. I mean, it was, I had people messaging me saying it's done. Wolves aren't even going to get double figures. I mean, people don't realise how hard it is to do what Derby did, as we discussed in our podcast.
They've still got 4 points to get. It took them, 19 matches to get the first 3? 20 matches to get the first 3, so...
On the underlying numbers, something Derby County had no idea about in 07-08, Wolves aren't even in the bottom 3 right now. So they have left it too late, really, to make a great escape. It would be the greatest escape. But they are a much better team than people give them credit for. And, yeah, with the emergence of someone like Mane, they've got I think they can kind of...
If you've got a goal scorer...
They're D-Mob happy for the last few months of the season. They can sort of prep for a joyous season, a spa break back in the Championship. 14
points is the margin, but if you've got a goal scorer, you've got a chance. Charlie, and what a goal scorer they've unearthed in Matheus Mane.
Yeah, what a player. I mean, he's so skillful and so fearless. You kind of wish for their sake he'd come into the team a bit earlier.
Michael Keane getting sent off here. So problems for Everton. Michael Keane getting sent off after scoring, but shown a red card for pulling a ponytail. You won't remember this, Liam, but my thoughts immediately went to Peter Crouch in that England game against Trinidad and Tobago.
You're right, I don't remember.
Romero did it to Cucurella, not a ponytail, but he yanked his hair.
Right. Well, anyway, Keane did. The latest offender, yanking on Tolo Arrocadore's ponytail, and Jack Grealish then getting a second yellow for sarcastically applauding the referee for giving him a free kick.
And sometimes when players sarcastically applaud, it's a little sort of, a little I'm at the theatre, clap, clap, clap. But this was a proper overhead a concert. Means Keane and Grealish are suspended for the cup game with Sunderland at the weekend, which doesn't sound a disaster in some respects. But Everton... They've not won a trophy since 1995 when they won the FA Cup.
1995? What a year that was.
Yeah, again. I mean, I'm sure they listened to Robson and Jerome on the coach to Wembley. Yeah. Go and win it for whatever. What was the programme they were?
Point of information, it did come out later in the year than the FA Cup final before any pedants. Right,
okay.
I believe so, yeah.
All right.
Well, maybe they saw Paul Rideout and went, unchained centre forward. But... Yeah, Everton should really focus on trying to win the FA Cup, and they're going to be shorn of two of their best players.
Crystal Palace, who are the FA Cup holders, had a goalless draw with Aston Villa. Oliver Glasner thus remaining unbeaten in his 7 matches against Unai Emery's Villa. And the other game that happened midweek was on Tuesday. Do you remember this, Liam? West Ham 1, Nottingham Forest 2. What could have been for the Hammers? They took the lead, for me, wildly against the run of play through that Murillo own goal, and then thought they made it 2-0 when Crescencio Somerville put it away. But that was called back for a questionable offside. And then Forest get a penalty in the 89th minute, again with the VAR review, which sees West Ham ending up with nothing. By this point, the stands were almost empty because it does look like a lot of the West Ham supporters have given up. And their team are 7 points now behind Forest. They could have been just 1 point behind them, 1 point from safety.
And they so nearly were, because they thought they were 2-0 up. And then it was a very VAR-y disallowed goal, in the sense that it wasn't even one which you felt anxious about in the moment, because it was a sort of weird technical offside, which I think a lot of fans are also annoyed about, because they feel that it did hit the Forest player, but it's whether there was intent, etc., etc. Anyway, they went from thinking they were 2-0 up to very quickly it being 1-1. And it was the most sort of goal that you concede if you're doomed and then things are going against you, equaliser. It was a loopy header off a corner. I don't think the attempt was necessarily even to score. It was just kind of put it in an area and it looped. They've got a defender, Walker Peters, on the line, but he can't quite reach it. It goes into like the only place it could. And then Nuno kind of just head in his hands while there's this long VAR check for whether it will be a penalty. You know it's going to be a penalty. He knows. Everyone there knows. It's just this sort of slow march towards what feels like a bad end to the season. Maybe they've still got time to save themselves, but this felt pretty grim for them.
10 games without a win now for West Ham. 4 points from the last 30 available, which is their worst run since 2006-2007, when it required that incredible Tevez sequence to get them out of jail. West Ham have, intriguingly, got rid of their 2 main strikers that they started the season with, replacing them with Tati Castellanos and Pablo Felipe. Fulkrug's gone to Milan. And Callum Wilson's had his contract cancelled. Poor Callum Wilson. It's a surprising call. Anyway, Chris McKenna points out that Nuno was sacked by Forest this season after losing to West Ham. What are the odds that he might get sacked by West Ham after losing to Forest? Is there any hint that...
I think watching it did feel like it's had that slight end of days feel, but there's been no sort of major news on that front since. I mean, Nuno's managed 4 of the bottom 7 teams in the Premier League currently. And yeah, his stock has fallen a bit from, by the end of last season, or certainly in around March of last season when it was incredibly high.
I don't think I've ever seen a manager look so dejected as Nuno was at the end of that game. He was, as Charlie said, he was just sat with his head in his hands, and I think we can't speak for him, but I imagine a montage of decisions was playing through his mind. And yeah, it's an incredibly bleak situation at West Ham, and yeah, I think that game was huge, and you do fear for them now.
FA Cup 3rd round preview. No replays these days, but still all that magic. They'll have extra time if level after 90 minutes, then penalties. No VAR in any of the games until the 5th round, at which point every game will have VAR, whether they like it or not. 32 matches, of course, this weekend as the Premier League sides enter the fray. There'll be 4 all Premier League affairs. Tottenham, Aston Villa, Everton, Sunderland, Newcastle, Bournemouth, and Manchester United against Brighton and Hove Albion. The holders, Crystal Palace, intriguingly, will take on 6th tier side Macclesfield FC of the National League North. Macclesfield, who are one of 3 non-league clubs left in the competition, the other 2 being Weston-super-Mare, also of the 6th tier. They're in round 3 for the first time in their 138-year history. That's crazy. Their fixture will be away at Grimsby, who of course know a thing or two about cup upsets themselves, having knocked Man United out of the Carabao Cup earlier this season. The other non-league club are Boreham Wood. Boreham Wood. 4 years ago, they lit up this competition, reaching the 5th round from non-league. This time around, they're going to be hosting Burton Albion.
Lovely pitch at Boreham Wood. It's a lovely pitch.
yeah.
I mean, Arsenal's 21s, 18s play there.
Yeah.
Women's team does as well sometimes. And it's I think Arsenal have like the specifications of the same grass, whatever combination, how they have it at the Emirates. So it's an absolute carpet.
Right, okay.
That's not what we want in the third round of the
Elsewhere, little-known semi-Welsh side Wrexham will be facing Premier League opposition for the first time since those Hollywood boys took over in 2021. Nottingham Forest visiting the racecourse ground. Liverpool will be up against League One Barnsley, which will bring back thoughts of the 2008 FA Cup game, which Barnsley won 2-1. Arsenal are off at Portsmouth, who won the competition in 2008. What a season that was.
It was an amazing FA Cup, yeah. Portsmouth winning at Old Trafford as well.
Also this third round, anyway, Chelsea get another London derby. This one's at Charlton Athletic. That'll be the first game in charge, of course, for Liam Rosenior. And 7-time champions Manchester City get a visit from League One Exeter City. What, amongst all of that, are you particularly excited about looking out for, Duncan?
Possibly Macclesfield Palace. Just because Macclesfield are a nice story. Obviously Macclesfield Town went out of business. They've reformed. A proper football town, Macclesfield. They've got some good heritage. They're managed by John Rooney, who's obviously Wayne's little brother. And they're playing the holders. And Crystal Palace have never been in this situation before, where they're the holders of a major competition. So I think in terms of it reminds me slightly of when Coventry. I don't think they were the holders actually, but when they went to Sutton in the late 80s, and they kind of got undone in that game. So I think it's a pretty ramshackle ground at Macclesfield. So yeah, I think it's early on Saturday, which never often lends itself to high quality, but I think it will be competitive.
Moss Rose, yeah, proper football heritage there. That'll be Saturday lunchtime. I'm intrigued. John Rooney. What's his background? Was he a player too?
Basically a classic lower league Burley midfielder, basically.
Okay.
So played most games for teams like Chester, played for Wrexham when they were in struggling in non-league, played for Barrow, Stockport, Oldham, played for Macclesfield.
Bulls, of course.
Yeah, all the struggling northern teams, so yeah.
Wrexham, I asked if there was Friday night football. It's only Wrexham against Nottingham Forest. So that's going to be
will be quite fun. I know women kind of hate Wrexham, but that will. Well, I think championship heads don't really like the fact they've just spent loads of money and muscled their way in like that. But it is a good story. They
are performing extraordinarily well. They've had 3 promotions in a row under Reynolds and McElhenney.
He's changed his name, hasn't he?
Has he?
To Rob Mack. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because people couldn't pronounce his surname, unlike you, James. So he's now legally called Rob Mack.
Rob Mack. Anyway, Wrexham have rocketed up just 1 point off the playoffs after 4 straight wins. Kiefer Moore banging them in. So that's going to be a tough test, you feel, for Sean Dyche's Nottingham Forest. Charlie, what are you looking out for this weekend?
That was going to be my game.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because I think they'll be so up for it, and often, FA Cup ties are a bit overshadowed by heavy rotation on both teams.
Right.
But yeah, I think they'll be really up for this. I think it will have there'll be a real sense of occasion, and I would think Forest would be fairly vulnerable because I don't think this will be at all their priority.
Liam, Brighton.
They play Man United twice a season, and they've played them in the Cup before. I think Charlton Chelsea looks great fun.
Okay.
South East London versus West. Probably theoretically actually quite an ideal first proper game for Liam Rosenior, because obviously playing championship opposition, struggling championship opposition. But I think a third round game like that under the lights, an 8 o'clock kickoff, you just know they'll be completely bang up for that. It can be a really, really big banana skin. I think that's the kind of game where it's kind of a lose-lose for Chelsea, isn't it? It's kind of it's all you need to do is just be professional, kind of come out of that. Don't get players sent off, don't get players booked, etc. So that should be great fun.
Okay, 8 o'clock on Saturday. That Liam Rosenior making his debut as manager up against the man who statistically was one of the best managers in Europe at Luton, Nathan Jones. Numbers aren't looking quite so good. That was, according to him, of course. Just 1 win in 11 for the Addicts, who are currently 5 points above the relegation zone. And yet, as Liam says, you can see it happening, can't you? Spurs are up against Aston Villa. Does anyone think that's going to be a great game? It's at Saturday, 5:45, so yeah.
I think it could be a good game, yeah. I mean, their league game earlier in the season, which Villa won 2-1, was quite entertaining. But yes, obviously Spurs at home has not been a particularly compelling watch.
No, indeed. Portsmouth.
They really need to win that.
Right. Okay. Well, that's Saturday, 5:45. As mentioned, the 4:30 Sunday game is Man United Brighton, and we'll take the opportunity after that to round up events thus far in the oldest ongoing cup competition in the world. There's a Monday night game, and that's the Liverpool-Barnsley one, which will complete round 3. Anyway, do hope you'll join us on Sunday night or hang around for the podcast when that appears on Monday morning. For now, though, many, many thanks to Duncan, and a big get well soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Duncan. To Liam as well. Lovely to have you in. Thank you so much. Charlie.
Thank you. And just one final mention of Unchained Melody.
Oh.
It was, in fact, number 1 when Everton won the FA Cup.
Right.
It was number 1. It was part of its 7 weeks at number 1.
7 weeks.
Yeah. What a time to be alive.
Excellent. We'll be back with you on Sunday evening. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.